Novus Dawn. That festering dust ball is supposed to be home. Funny, isn't it? How quickly a man's definition of home can change. It used to be a high-rise overlooking the glimmering arcologies of New Albion, back when my name, Felix Walker, meant something in the circles that mattered. Now, it's a cramped bunk aboard the Starseeker, a ship that's seen more spacewalks than a derelict sanitation bot. The irony of it all still stings. I was a xenolinguist, once celebrated for my insights into the long-dead Xantus and the grammatically confounding Yatari. My work was displayed in the hallowed halls of the Academy. Now, I'm a glorified junk peddler, a black market broker fluent in the universal language of desperation, the only one still spoken on Novus Dawn. They call it a colony, more like a slow-motion extinction event. Our sun, a dimming, anemic dwarf, is giving up the ghost, and with it, our hope. The hydroponics are failing, and the administrators, in their infinite wisdom, have decided that rationing is the solution. Surprise, surprise, it turns out that when you squeeze people, they tend to break. The laborers are getting restless. I saw it in their eyes during my last run, a hint of defiance that wasn't there a few cycles ago. It's only a matter of time before the whole powder keg goes up. And then there's Wexler. Even now, years after his betrayal, the name leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Worse than the recycled air. He was my partner, my colleague, a man I considered a friend. But he was also a mediocre intellect consumed by envy. He craved the recognition that came so easily to me. We were working on a solution to Novus Dawn energy crisis, researching advanced methods of harnessing stellar power, a potential breakthrough that could have saved the colony. Wexler, impatient and ambitious, twisted my research into something dangerous and unstable, promising immediate results. He presented this corrupted version to the project's board, and when his demonstration inevitably backfired, causing a catastrophic reactor breach, the blame fell on me. The ensuing explosion not only destroyed the facility but also left a scar of irradiated land that remains uninhabitable to this day. They called it the Walker Catastrophe. My name became synonymous with fraud, recklessness. I was expelled, disgraced, my career reduced to ashes. Now he's probably hailed as a cautious hero on Luna, while I'm chasing ghosts in the ass end of nowhere, still trying to scrub the stain from my reputation, to prove that my original research held the key to a future Wexler stole from us all, especially the people on Novus Dawn. But those ghosts are the reason I'm here, crammed into this flying coffin with a crew as motley as they come. The silicates, a mystery wrapped in a riddle, seasoned with a healthy dose of absurdity. They were an alien race, that much is certain, the only one humanity ever encountered, albeit briefly, indirectly. It happened centuries ago during the first wave of interstellar expansion. A deep space probe, the Argonaut, stumbled upon a system on the edge of explored space, designated Sigma 749, and what it found defied all expectations. Automated long-range scans, later verified by long-range spectroscopic analysis, revealed structures, artificial, orbiting a gas giant. Megastructures, the long-range scans confirmed, on a scale that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Dyson swarms, a ring world, and other structures, indicative of a Kardashev Type II civilization. By the time the first manned expedition, the Magellan, arrived, nearly a decade later due to the vast distances, there was nothing left. The structures were gone, vanished without a trace, leaving only gravitational anomalies, later determined to be remnants of their gravitic shear technology. That was the extent of humanity's contact with the silicates, a fleeting glimpse of their unimaginable power, and then, nothing. They mastered gravitic shear technology, the kind of tech that could fold space like cheap fabric. Our scientists are still struggling to replicate it on any meaningful scale, using crude methods, achieving nothing compared to what the Argonaut found. The silicates vanished without a trace, leaving behind only legends, a few heavily debated artifacts in the hands of private collectors, supposedly sourced from Sigma 749, though their authenticity remains dubious, and the Outer Dissolution, a zone of space so mangled, so utterly warped, that it makes a black hole look like a kiddie pool. The prevailing theory, based on the residual energy signatures found within the dissolution, is that their disappearance was linked to their experiments with gravitic shear technology. A catastrophic accident, perhaps, that consumed their entire civilization within Sigma 749. It's believed their civilization was confined to one system, the most likely explanation for their disappearance, supported by the evidence we have now. Only tech like gravitic shears can cause such a mess, as any spacer will tell you. No other known technology can cause this phenomenon. It's a navigational nightmare, a graveyard of ships that got too close. And of course, it's our destination. Rogan Quinn, our esteemed captain, calls it a salvage mission. A last-ditch effort to find something in the dissolution that can drag Novus Dawn back from the brink. He's a man carved from granite and old regrets, with an artificial eye that glints in the dim light of the bridge. I saw him snap once during a deal gone south on Titan. Not a pretty sight. He lost his last crew in some kind of spatial anomaly, and I suspect he sees this mission as a chance at redemption, or maybe just a way to go out in a blaze of glory. Then there's Wilder, a wall of muscle with a surprisingly gentle heart, or so he tries to project. He's our security, though what he's supposed to be securing us from out here is anyone's guess. Probably himself. He doesn't say much, but his silences are more eloquent than most people's speeches. He cleans his pulse rifle a lot, almost obsessively. I catch him staring at it sometimes, a hint of something dark and dangerous in his eyes. He has a history, one he doesn't talk about. I've seen his type before in the back alleys and dingy bars where I used to ply my trade. Men who carry their violence like a second skin. I'm not sure he trusts me, but then I'm not sure he trusts anyone, not even himself. Archie, on the other hand, is an open book, albeit one written in a language of pure anxiety. He's our navigator, a bundle of nerves and raw talent, young enough to still believe in heroes and happy endings. He practically vibrates with nervous energy, his fingers constantly drumming on his console, his eyes darting around as if he expects the ship to spontaneously combust at any moment. He's got the skills, no doubt, but he's green. This mission will either break him or make him. He looks at me sometimes with a kind of hero worship that makes me profoundly uncomfortable. I'm not sure which is worse, his fear or his misplaced admiration. And then we have Dr. Gideon Hightower, a cold fish if there ever was one, our esteemed medical officer, though I suspect his interest in our well-being is purely academic. He's got a cybernetic hand that he designed himself, a reminder perhaps of his own fall from grace. A lab accident, they say. But I've heard the whispers, unethical experiments, patients who didn't make it. He reminds me a bit of Wexler, actually. The same ambition, the same willingness to bend the rules. He's always watching, analysing, his gaze as sharp as a surgical laser. I catch him looking at me sometimes, a strange, almost predatory glint in his eyes. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw Wilder, and that's not very far at all. Approaching the dissolution, Rogan's voice, rough and clipped as always, came over the comm. I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on the viewport. The distorted starlight painted the edges of the scene, a swirling kaleidoscope of colours. It looked like someone had taken a fistful of stars and smeared them across the fabric of reality. The readings on my own datapad spiked, the radiation levels climbing steadily. We were entering the graveyard. Through the swirling chaos, a shape began to emerge. A colossal structure, kilometers long, its architecture simultaneously familiar and alien. Smooth quartz-like surfaces, interwoven with a tracery of dark alloy, glinted in the distorted starlight. It was a ship, silent, pristine. The silicate vessel. "By the void," Archie breathed. It's even bigger than the scans suggested." "Keep it together," Rogan said, his voice tight, though even he couldn't entirely mask his own astonishment. "Wilder, any signs of activity?" "Negative, Captain. Wilder's deep voice rumbled over the comm. "But my instruments are practically screaming. Some kind of energy signature. Can't identify it. Not human, I can tell you that much." "Silicate, no doubt," I murmured. My eyes remained fixed on the derelict. "It's them. It has to be." The vessel's hull was flawless. Every surface, every curve and junction appeared perfectly intact, untouched by time or any external force. It was as if the ship had been frozen in a moment of time, awaiting a command to reawaken. "Airlock located, port side," Archie announced. Rogan turned to us. "All right, listen up. We go in fast, we find what we can, and we get out. No unnecessary risks. This is not a sightseeing tour." He paused, his focus lingering on each of us in turn. "We stick together. We watch each other's backs." The ship's airlock was unresponsive to our initial attempts to open it. After several tense minutes, Archie managed to bypass the primary controls, the heavy door sliding open. Our boots made no sound on the smooth, quartz-like floor. The artificial gravity, a steady, consistent pull, was almost identical to Earth's. Rogan led the way, with Wilder following close behind, his pulse rifle held at the ready, its barrel sweeping back and forth, covering our flanks. The architecture was breathtaking. Towering arches, massive chambers that stretched on forever, and structures whose purpose I could only guess at. Everything was built on a scale that dwarfed humanity's grandest achievements. And yet, despite the grandeur, a profound silence reigned. We moved through corridors that shifted and changed, the geometry subtly non-Euclidean. It wasn't jarring, but a gradual bending of space that, over time, could easily disorient an unwary traveller. Archie, despite his anxiety, was proving his worth. He had an uncanny ability to navigate the ship's interior, his innate sense of spatial relationships allowing him to create a surprisingly accurate map on his datapad. "This way," he said, his voice tense but firm over the comm. "The energy readings are strongest in this direction." We followed him, deeper into the ship. We passed through chambers filled with machinery. Intricate devices composed of the same seamless blend of quartz and dark alloy were fitted into every available space, their purpose unknown but clearly advanced beyond anything I'd ever seen. In one chamber, we found what appeared to be holographic displays, panels of light that responded to our touch, revealing complex schematics, scientific data, and what I suspected were logs or records. The information was dense, layered, and in a language I was only beginning to understand. "Incredible," I murmured, my gloved hand hovering over a display. They were charting stellar movements, not just in this galaxy, but in others. And look at this, gravitic readings. They were mapping the fabric of space-time. "Can you make any sense of it?" Rogan asked, his voice betraying a hint of impatience. "I'm working on it," I replied. "It's silicate, highly technical, it will take time." We pressed on, following Archie's lead. We entered a chamber, bathed in a soft violet luminescence. The source wasn't artificial lighting, but the flora itself. This was the Garden of Xanthus, as a partially translated inscription indicated. Towering, multifaceted structures resembling enormous sculpted rock formations emitted the violet light. They were the primary energy source, drawing power from deep within the ship and converting it into a form of radiation that nourished the surrounding plant life. Mobile plants thrived in this environment. Some resembled ferns, releasing clouds of airborne particles that danced in the gentle currents. Others were bulbous, floating organisms with porous, retractable stalks that absorbed the particles, their bodies glowing faintly. Vines with lens-like structures coiled around the light-emitting formations, focusing the violet energy. "These are not merely plants," Gideon stated, his usual detachment replaced by a hint of fascination. "They're biomechanical constructs, a living power grid that generates the atmosphere regulation within the entire ship." "So, not food?" Rogan asked. "Not in the conventional sense," I interjected, studying the inscription near the entrance. "It mentions the Great Harmony, referring to this ecosystem's balance, and the nourishment of Xanthus. It seems the airborne particles weren't just for the plants. The silicates likely derived sustenance from them too, perhaps even energy or cognitive enhancement. Rogan grunted. Analysis we don't have time for. Felix, any progress with those logs? I'm getting there, I said. The silicates were obsessed with higher dimensions. They were using their gravitic shear technology to probe the boundaries of reality, not just manipulate time. They were looking for something, Archie added. Or maybe trying to escape something. Wilder grunted. Maybe they should have stayed put. We continued our exploration, moving through laboratories filled with even more advanced equipment. Experimental graviton-based devices, containment fields humming with residual energy, and observation chambers designed for viewing events at a subatomic level. Everything was pristine, functional, yet utterly devoid of any signs of the beings that created it. We reached a vast, circular chamber, larger than any we had encountered before. At its center was a colossal device, a towering structure of intricately interwoven quartz and dark alloy. This, I knew instinctively, was the heart of the ship, the focal point of the silicates' final experiment. This was where they made their leap into the unknown, a leap they seemingly never returned from. This is it, I announced. The culmination of their work. I traced the carvings on the central device, the same blend of smooth, quartz-like material and dark, intricately woven alloy that made up the rest of the ship. It was a clear display of the silicates' mastery over forces we were only beginning to understand. According to the logs, this wasn't just about manipulating time. They were trying to create a new universe, a reality with its own set of physical laws that they could access. Rogan's artificial eye narrowed. A new universe. What does that even mean? Imagine a bubble, I said. A pocket dimension, separate from our own, with its own set of physical laws. They believed it was a higher dimension. But if they created it, where is it? Archie asked. Inside the device, I explained, tapping the hard surface. They built this as a gateway, a bridge. They went through expecting to ascend, to evolve, but they couldn't come back. The reality they created, it wasn't what they expected. It was unstable, self-contained, and ultimately a prison. I paused, examining a particular section of the log more closely. The logs describe it as a realm of malleable constants, where gravity is not a fixed value but a variable, and light behaves according to different principles. They mention geometric storms and sentient energy patterns. Suddenly, the device reacted. The metallic components within the quartz structure began to move, realigning with a high-pitched whine, like metal under stress. The carvings on the device's surface became brighter, the embedded lines glowing, emitting visible light that intensified from a dim violet into a stark, bright white. The previously clear material between the lines turned opaque, spreading quickly, like fungus. My suit's radiation alarm began to trill, its urgent tone echoing inside my helmet. The gravity in the chamber fluctuated, a noticeable shift that made my stomach lurch. What's happening? Wilder's hand tightened around his pulse rifle. It's activating, Archie said. He was staring at his datapad, his eyes wide with alarm. I'm detecting a massive energy surge, a spatial anomaly expanding rapidly from the center of the device. It's like a bubble, growing outwards. A bubble of what? Rogan demanded. Another reality, Gideon interjected, his voice unusually animated. The pocket universe. It's merging with ours. He stepped closer to the device, his cybernetic hand twitching. Extraordinary. The energy readings are off the charts. It's as if the two realities are trying to harmonize to become one. Rogan was the first to react. We're getting out of here. No, I said, stepping forward. We can't just run. We need to stop it. Stop it? Rogan's voice was sharp, laced with disbelief. How do you propose we stop a universe from merging with ours? The silicates must have had a way, I insisted. A failsafe, a way to contain the anomaly. It's in the logs, somewhere. We just need to find it. And what if we don't? Wilder asked, his eyes fixed on the expanding field of distortion that was beginning to ripple outwards from the device. What if this thing keeps growing until it swallows the whole ship, the whole system? The spatial distortions were becoming more pronounced. The once stable geometry of the chamber was beginning to warp. Corridors seemed to lengthen and shorten. Walls appeared to bend and curve, and the air shimmered with fleeting, translucent images, glimpses of another reality, alien landscapes and structures. In one instance, a section of the far wall briefly resolved into a scene that stretched into a disorienting distance. It wasn't a landscape, but a vast, grid-like structure like the ship's interior, but on a vastly different scale. Lines that should have converged instead remained parallel, creating a disturbing sense of endless, directionless space. What appeared to be solid surfaces were revealed as thin, vibrating membranes. The sky was a shifting field of light and shadow, where the light itself followed no discernible source and cast no proper shadows, moving as though originating from multiple, independent sources. "We need to work fast," I said, turning back to the device. "Archie, can you map the anomaly? Track its expansion?" I'm trying," Archie stammered. "But it's unpredictable. The readings are all over the place." "Gideon, any insights? Can you analyze the energy signature, figure out what's driving this?" Gideon, already engrossed in his own analysis, nodded. "It's not just manipulating space-time, it's rewriting it. The two universes are trying to conform to a single set of physical laws. It's a forced harmonization." While Gideon and Archie worked, I examined the silicate logs once more, searching for any clue, any hint of how they had intended to control their creation. The language was complex, filled with technical jargon and abstract concepts, but I was beginning to grasp the underlying principles. I found a section detailing their attempts to stabilize the pocket universe. It described a process of resonant dampening, using specific frequencies of energy to counteract the expansion. They had developed a complex algorithm, a set of instructions for modulating the energy flow. But there were also warnings, hastily scribbled it seemed, about the dangers of a disharmonic cascade, if the frequencies were not precisely calibrated. "I think I found something," I announced. They called it the nexus, the point of convergence between the two universes. According to this, they had a way to stabilize it, to regulate the flow of energy. "How?" Rogan asked. "They used the ship's systems," I explained. "They were integrated with the device. We need to recalibrate it, turn it from a portal generator into a stabilizer." The ship groaned, a sound that resonated deep within its structure, like the death throes of a dying beast. The merging was accelerating, no longer a gradual process. The pocket universe, once contained, was now aggressively expanding, its reality bleeding into ours at an alarming rate. "Wilder," Rogan barked. "Get back to the Starseeker. Prep for immediate departure. If this goes south, we need a way out." Wilder nodded, holstering his pulse rifle. "On it. You all be careful in here." Without another word, he turned and headed back towards the airlock, his heavy boots echoing in the increasingly distorted corridor. "Archie," I said, "I need you to pinpoint the nexus, the focal point of the anomaly. We need to interface with the ship's systems at that exact point." "I'm trying," Archie said, his voice strained, "but the distortions are making it difficult. It's like trying to navigate through a hurricane." Archie, his eyes darting between his datapad and the increasingly bizarre distortions around us, was the picture of barely controlled panic. Yet, beneath that fear, I saw a spark of determination. He was adapting, his brilliant mind finding patterns in the chaos even as his body trembled. "I've got it," he announced. "The nexus. It's not a single point, it's a shifting field, a zone of convergence. But I can isolate the primary energy flow. It's like a river, constantly changing course. And we need to dam that river," I said, turning to Gideon. "Can you reroute it? Back into the device?" "Theoretically, yes," he said, his voice almost a murmur. "But it's not as simple as redirecting a current. We're dealing with multiple layers of reality. We need to create a resonance cascade, a feedback loop that will harmonize the energies, not eliminate them." "English, Gideon," Rogan said. The gravity fluctuated again, a sudden stomach-churning lurch that threw us off balance. "He means we can't stop it," I explained. "But we might be able to slow it down, contain it." Gideon nodded. "Precisely. We can't unmake the bridge, but we can make it narrower. We can stabilize the anomaly, create a localized zone of hybrid reality, a self-contained bubble." The process was agonizingly slow. Every time we thought we had a handle on the energy flow, it would shift, mutate, forcing us to recalibrate. The glimpses of the other reality became more intense. At one point, a section of the floor dissolved, revealing not the deck below, but a swirling vortex of colors. A creature emerged from the vortex, a being of pure energy, its form shifting and changing, like a living flame. It had no discernible features, no eyes or mouth, yet I felt its presence, its awareness like a cold spot in my mind. It reached out towards us, not with limbs but with focused beams of energy, each one a visible current of charged particles, and I saw Gideon reach back. Rogan grabbed Gideon's arm, pulling him back from the vortex. "Are you insane?" The energy being, momentarily confused, recoiled back into the vortex as the floor solidified, leaving only a lingering chill in the air. Gideon, shaken but defiant, glared at Rogan. "That was an opportunity," he hissed. "A chance to understand." "To die," Rogan cut him off. "We're here to contain this, not commune with it." Finally, we managed to align the device, to create the resonance cascade Gideon had envisioned. The effect was not immediate, but gradual. The distortions didn't disappear, but they slowed, stabilized. The glimpses of the other reality became less frequent, less jarring. The groaning of the ship subsided, replaced by a low, steady vibration. "It's working," Archie said. "The anomaly is contained. It's like a bubble, a pocket of altered reality centered around the device." We had not stopped the merging, but we had slowed it down, creating a localized zone of hybrid reality, a permanent anomaly contained mostly within the silicate ship. The device at the heart of the chamber had transformed no longer a gateway, but a swirling vortex of energy, a chaotic blend of two universes. Rogan, his face grim, nodded. "All right, let's move. We're done here." Gideon, however, was not done. As we turned to leave, he lingered by the console, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex. He reached into his pocket, producing a small, metallic cylinder. A sample container, I realized with a jolt of alarm. "Gideon, what are you doing?" I demanded. "Collecting data," he said, his voice low and intense. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can't just walk away." He moved towards the vortex, his hand outstretched, the container glinting in the light. Rogan and I rushed forward, grabbing him, pulling him back. He struggled, his movements surprisingly strong, fueled by a desperate, almost manic energy. "Let me go!" he hissed. "This is bigger than all of us. This is the future." "The future is getting back to the Starseeker alive," Rogan growled, wrestling him away from the vortex. "There will be no samples, not now. Not ever." We dragged Gideon, protesting and struggling, away from the device back towards the airlock. Once inside, Wilder slammed the airlock controls, sealing us off from the alien ship. We watched from the viewport as the Starseeker pulled away, leaving the silicate ship behind. It was a shimmering, distorted anomaly against the backdrop of warped starlight, a visible scar on the fabric of space-time. A bridge between two realities, forever altering this small section of the universe. We were safe for now, but the long-term consequences of what we had done were unknown. We had averted a catastrophic merging, but we had also unleashed something new, something we didn't fully understand. Our universe was safe from complete assimilation, but the anomaly we left behind could have unforeseen repercussions. With the immediate crisis averted, we found ourselves back in Novus Dawn. The grand silicate discovery, the hoped-for salvation, had yielded no tangible solutions. Rogan focused on the immediate needs of Novus Dawn. He used his newfound notoriety to negotiate better trade deals, securing a temporary reprieve for the colony. He established stricter safety protocols for any expeditions venturing near the nexus, knowing firsthand the dangers it held. He remained captain of the Starseeker for a time, but eventually, quietly retired, living a solitary life on the outskirts of the colony. Wilder, the reluctant warrior, found a new purpose in the aftermath. The encounter with the other reality, the raw, untamed forces he had witnessed, had shaken him to his core. He left the Starseeker, using his skills to train the colony's security forces, instilling in them a respect for the unknown and a cautious approach to the dangers that lurked beyond their fragile haven. He never spoke of his past again. Archie, the once anxious navigator, emerged from the crucible of the derelict a changed man. The terror he had experienced had burned away his insecurities, replaced by a quiet confidence, a deep understanding of the universe's underlying chaos. He became a sought-after expert on spatial anomalies, his skills honed by his intimate encounter with the nexus. He dedicated his life to studying the anomaly, developing new methods of navigation and charting the ever-shifting boundaries of the hybrid zone. He never lost his sense of wonder, but it was tempered now by a profound respect for the forces that lay beyond human understanding. Gideon remained obsessed with the other reality. He used the data he had surreptitiously collected to further his research, exploring the mysteries of the silicates and their experiments. He became a recluse, shunned by the scientific community for his unorthodox methods and his unwavering belief in the potential of the nexus. He was consumed by a desire to return, to unlock the secrets of the other universe, no matter the cost. His research led him down a dangerous path, blurring the lines between science and obsession, ultimately leading to his disappearance. Some say he found a way back to the nexus, others that his experiments consumed him. As for me, Felix Walker, the disgraced academic, I found a measure of redemption in the aftermath. My knowledge of the silicates had proven vital. I used my newfound credibility, not to reclaim my former position, but to establish a research institute on Novus Dawn, dedicated to studying the nexus and the legacy of the silicates. I never forgot Wexler, the man who had betrayed me. In a strange twist of fate, the energy crisis that led to my downfall was eventually solved, not through the dangerous shortcuts he pursued, but through a more cautious approach, one that built upon my original, untainted research. It was a quiet vindication. My journey, it turned out, was far from over. The echoes of the nexus, the legacy of the silicates, had set me on a new path, a path that led not to glory or riches, but to a deeper understanding of the universe and the delicate balance that held it all together. And as I looked out at the stars each night, I knew that the story of the Starseeker, the story of the nexus, was just one chapter in a much larger, much stranger tale, a tale that was still being written. One discovery, one encounter, one near catastrophe at a time. The universe, after all, was full of echoes, waiting to be heard by those who dared to listen.